Buster here for the same reason that I am. The Miami Dolphins have just traded to acquire wide receiver Tyreek Hill from the Kansas City Chiefs. Yada, yada, yada. We are living our absolute best lives as Dolphins fans. We are back to being off-season champions, making big moves here in the off-season. Kyle Krabs, Locked On Dolphins, emergency podcast, Tyreek Hill's and Miami Dolphins.
You are Locked On Dolphins, your daily Miami Dolphins podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, Dolphins fans? Kyle Krabs of Locked On Dolphins, director of scouting at the Draft Network. But you're not here about the draft today, are you? No, because the Dolphins, they don't have a first-round pick this year in the NFL draft. They don't have a second-round pick in this year's NFL draft. Shoot, they don't have a top 100 pick in this year's NFL draft because they have traded for wide receiver Tyreek Hill from the Kansas City Chiefs. Big moves. Y'all had the gall to call Chris Grier sleepy Chris Grier, they said. Is Chris Grier sleepy now? Dolphins making splash moves left and right. Signed Terron Armstead last night. 5 years, 75, yada, yada. Opportunity to make up to $87.5, $44 million in guaranteed money. And less than 24 hours later, made Tyreek Hill a Miami Dolphin, trading for one of the most electric wide receivers in all of football. I'm your host here on Locked On Dolphins, Kyle Krabs, lifelong Miami Dolphins fan. But thank you guys for making Locked On Dolphins your first Miami Dolphins listen of the day. And listen, here's the compensation that was sent. The Miami Dolphins sent the 29th overall pick. They sent the 50th overall pick. And that was the base of the Davante Adams trade that happened about 2 weeks ago. And they also added a fourth-round pick this year. It could be 121 or 125. And then it also sent a fourth round and a sixth-round pick in 2023. You know what they didn't do? They didn't send 2 ones. They didn't touch those 2 ones they have in the bank for 2023. And what they have done is they have provided the absolute best possible environment to evaluate a young quarterback, in which we're trying to get some clarity and some finality in what we have right now into Tua Tagovailoa. And we're as close as we're ever going to be to finding out that answer, because the Dolphins have provided Jalen Waddle, rookie receptions record holder, on one side, and on the other side, the most deep receiving touchdowns since 2016 in the NFL in Tyreek Hill. And you might say, well, Kyle, Tua can't throw the ball deep. That's fine. You know what you need to throw the ball, or you know what you don't need to throw the ball down the field? And get yak, which we've heard Mike McDaniel talk about the San Francisco 49ers consistently leading the league in yak. You need speed. You know who has more 20-mile-per-hour touches than any player in the NFL since 2018? Tyreek Hill. Next Gen Stats has him charted at 45 20-plus mile-per-hour touches since 2018. The next highest player, Saquon Barkley, 17. I'm not a math guy, but I can tell you that 17 is less than half of 45. Tyreek Hill, the most explosive skill player that you will find in the NFL. Now, how he assimilates to the Dolphins offense and what Mike McDaniel plans to do with him and how Tua Tagovailoa is able to maximize his skill sets, that's a different conversation. But that's not really a conversation for today. Today's conversation is applauding the self-awareness of Chris Grier on multiple fronts and the aggressiveness that was required to get a deal like this done. Because you look back at some of the other young quarterbacks and their additions, and I think Buffalo is a great example. Buffalo traded a first-round pick for Stephon Diggs to help in the development of Josh Allen. I'm not going to sit here and lie to you guys and tell you that Tua Tagovailoa has anywhere near the physical tools, upside, or skill set that Josh Allen has. But Tyreek Hill with 45 20-plus mile-per-hour touches in the NFL since 2018, in an offense that also has Jalen Waddle, in an offense that brings Mike McDaniel, a creative play caller who's been applauded by every player who's been around him, to a system that's going to run wide zone, is highly committed to running the football, and you would imagine is going to be dramatically improved in their ability to design an effective screen game to the perimeter. Do the math. There's going to be, all the conversation we had last spring when the Dolphins added Will Fuller, and you had the conversation of, well, Will Fuller and potentially Jalen Waddle, and you're going to create these two high safety looks. Now, first of all, there's going to be a committed effort to running the football, which is going to help alleviate the fact that teams were content to run two high safety looks, but the Dolphins couldn't run the ball. But now you have Jalen Waddle and then a player who was comped in the pre-draft process to Jalen Waddle in Tyreek Hill. And I think Chris Grier not only evaluating Tua Tagovailoa, but evaluating his own position, right? You understand if you're Chris Grier and you survive the change of the head coach, despite the fact that this was the coach that you selected when you were made the man in charge in South Florida. Steve, hello. Hello, Steve. Check your pulse. Check your pulse, Dolphins fans. If it ain't racing right now, you're doing something wrong. But Chris Grier talking, I guess the whole shtick's done now. Chris Grier understanding that you have a pressure now on you as the person who was given the keys to the car. And your head coach commitment was not one that materialized in the way that you thought it would. Not a lot of GMs get to survive multiple head coaching changes. And this, here we go. This is a good comment from Tyler. Rams just won the Super Bowl with 0 draft picks the last 5 years in the first round and 0 in the next 5. You pay for a known commodity. That's how you win. I would agree with that on certain conditions. This works for teams that are in certain chapters of their life cycle as an organization. And we refer to that over the draftnetwork.com quite a bit. Life cycles of players, life cycles of teams. Your life cycle as a team, the Dolphins are a young contender. They've won 19 games in the NFL over the last 2 seasons. They have not made the playoffs, but that 19-win total is the 10th highest in the NFL over the last 2 years combined. And you, because of the youth of your roster and the influx in young, cheap, rookie and second and third year talent, allows you to make maneuvers like this, and it makes sense. Because, again, my show plan for tomorrow on Locked On Dolphins was going to be to pull up the draftnetwork.com's draft simulator that I am obviously very involved in crafting and creating. And we were going to run through some simulations. And I was going to say, let's see who's on the board at 29, because I do these consistently. It's part of my job description, which is a pretty cool perk of the job. But you go through these simulations and you get to 29, and if Tyler Linderbaum's gone and the wide receiver runs and Jahan Dotson is the run on wide receivers gets down past Jahan Dotson, and Devin Lloyd's off the board and Zion Johnson's off the board, you find yourself in this spot. And I literally just did it this morning, and I'm like, damn, there's not a lot of players I like that are going to be impact players for the Dolphins at 29. And if you think back on this podcast, one of the very first things we championed for was what? take this year's first-round draft selection and trade it for an established commodity in the NFL. And that discussion originally was kind of geared towards, is that too much to pay for Calvin Ridley? And of course, Calvin Ridley is not available. He's suspended for the year for betting on games in the NFL as an active player. I never in a million years would have even guessed that Tyreek Hill would have been available for trade, but yet here we are. And this is in large part because of the Christian Kirk contract that was paid out by the Jacksonville Jaguars. Because if you remember, when that deal was signed and it was up to $21 million per season, one of the first active NFL receivers to chime in was Tyreek Hill. And according to ESPN's Adam Schefter, talks between the Chiefs and Tyreek Hill's camp, the Rosenhaus camp, broke down in large part because Tyreek wanted to up the ante over the Devontae Adams contract extension. Well, he got it. In total, it's 4 years, $120 million. That's a lot of coin. It's over $70 million in guaranteed money. That's where the Dolphins sit. They are pushing their chips into the table. And I would also say this, the fact that they managed to pull this trade off without touching the day 1 and the day 2 picks in 2023, that's some sweet, sweet music, my friends. And this is the first time we've done a live show in quite some time. And I thought about doing one for Terron Armstead, but I could not be more glad that I have a chance to sit here with all of you in the immediate aftermath of the Tyreek Hill trade and digest it with all of you. We never would have bet that Tyreek Hill would have been available, but if you are looking for some solid sports betting action, it's that time of year. The college basketball tournament is upon us. For all the latest odds, contests, and player props, betonline.net is your number one source for all your sports betting needs and information. BetOnline remains the best spot for all of your scores, podcasts, and news this season. And it's not just basketball. BetOnline is your continued source for all your sports wagering information needs. Live betting in your favorite Vegas casino games. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends in action. BetOnline, where the game starts. Props to Sean. The Dolphins have made a huge, huge deal about the F1 track. F1 ain't the only speed in town because you got Jalen Waddle, Tyreek Hill. And these are two receivers that in the short game and in the vertical game, they'll put the fear in you because you are one full step away from a boatload of rack. I had somebody ask me if we think that Tyreek Hill could be Mike McDaniel's Deebo Samuel. And I don't think that's really an appropriate parallel to draw. They're obviously very different players. But here's the thing that we do know. You have Tyreek Hill, can win in the screen game, he can win vertically, and he can win across the middle on intermediate crossers. You got Jalen Waddle, who I think all those things are applicable for, and he's only going to get better as a player. And especially as he's given more room to work, you're going to see more of his creativity as a ball carrier and more of the explosiveness that he can provide. We saw the flash against Carolina. That was the closest we had to Alabama version of Jalen Waddle. Raheem Mostert. I know a couple people in the comments section. Raheem Mostert's a speed demon. And next gen stats, actually, this one comes from Marcel Louis Jacques of ESPN. The fastest speeds recorded in the NFL by next gen stats since 2016, 23.4 miles per hour, Tyreek Hill. 23.09 miles per hour, Raheem Mostert. 22.77 miles per hour, Tyreek Hill. And Raheem Mostert 22.73. The 4 fastest recorded GPS times in the NFL in the last 6 years has come from Miami Dolphins. Speed. And I selfishly am super stoked for a very arbitrary, not important reason in the grand scheme of the Dolphins. How many of you guys play Madden? You dabble in Madden at all? How long has it been boring to play as the Miami Dolphins on Madden? Be honest. It's been a sucky experience for me for probably the last 6-7 years. Can't run the ball. Don't have any speed. Aside of Jalen Waddle, Gesicki in the middle. So you just end up throwing seam balls to Gesicki all day long. I think it'll be a problem this year. I can tell you that right now. It's going to be fun playing as the Dolphins. Oh, man, it's also going to be fun watching this team offensively. Self-awareness is a powerful tool. And as I say, Chris Greer showcased a lot of self-awareness in what's been provided to Tua Tagovailoa, and he showcased a lot of self-awareness in the pressure in himself to put the gas pedal down, proverbially and literally. Put the gas pedal down on the offense. And that's where we find ourselves now. Now, as I'm sitting here and I'm digesting this with each and every one of you, I'll encourage you guys in the comments. And I see comments from Shane and Brandon and Paul and John and Kajon and Dylan and Kyle and Don and Joe. There's a lot of you guys. There's more people in this stream right now than I have ever had on a live stream. So bravo to you for 2:06 on a Wednesday for making yourselves available to talk a little Dolphins football. If you guys have questions, I would more than gladly field your questions on the Legion of Zoom or whatever you guys want to call it, which I think is a badass name. Rachis asking if we're in the running for Hard Knocks. I know one of the stipulations on Hard Knocks as far as being off the hook for being obligated to do it is having a first-year head coach. So I don't know that that's necessarily a guarantee. But if Mike McDaniel's willing to entertain it, I have a hard time imagining you're going to find a more entertaining Hard Knocks than Coach McDaniel and his entertainment value amidst all of the energy that this team has been able to inject into an offense that's been largely lifeless for quite some time. Brandon, does this mean Tua Tagovailoa has no excuses this year? I think this year's going to be very telling for Tua Tagovailoa. Whether that means it's no excuses, I think there's contextual things that can randomly happen throughout the course of any given season if the Dolphins are ravaged with injury. You know, it's something that could negatively impact your evaluation on him as a player. But they have isolated the variable, which is a phrase that I'm not going to take credit for. That comes from my good friend and unfortunately a Western New York football fan in Joe Marino, who I do draft dudes with here at the draftnetwork.com. Isolating the variable with a young player. Don't surround the developing quarterback with developing players, right? When you think about the offensive line and what it was, and the receiving core and what it was, and the offensive backfield and what it was, too much youth. So you see Tyreek Hill, you see Cedric Wilson, you see Terron Armstead, you see Connor Williams, you see Raheem Mostert and Chase Edmonds, established NFL players. You're isolating the variable as best as you possibly can. And that's all you could possibly hope for in a moment like this in which you're entering into year 3 with a player who you need to figure out if he is it or not it. Because the early returns have not met the expectations for being the number 5 overall pick in the NFL draft. Chris wants to know, tell me everything you know about wide zone versus 2 deep. So the 2 deep thing is more about the speed at receiver, which means the opposing team is going to have the fear of getting beat vertically in their minds because of the speed you have between Jalen and Tyreek Hill. But if you successfully establish the run, which is an eye-rolling phrase for a lot of football savants these days, because the NFL is a passing league. But if you do have success in gouging opposing defenses with the run, what they'll end up doing is they'll pull that safety down into the box and try and create a numbers advantage in the box to stop you from gouging them in the run game. And when that happens and they pull that second safety down into the box, and now you have a single high player, you can identify, okay, where's the ball aligned as far as what hash is it on? What is the field versus the boundary, which is the short side of the field? Do I have a speed advantage there? Do I have a one-on-one that I like? Can I hit a double move there? If everybody's going to bite hard on the run game and the play action, and it's going to slow down the pass rush, is that going to give me time to take a 5-7 step drop with my back to the defense and then turn around and get set and shoot the ball down the field? And if the answer is yes, Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle are going to be a problem, a big problem. I'm not going to sit here and tell you guys I'm going to guarantee it's all going to work and it's all going to come together and Tua Tagovailoa is going to be a Pro Bowl quarterback this year. He needs to show growth, and he needs to do his part to grow as a player to get to that point. But I think if you look at the offensive infrastructure that's been provided to him in the course of the last week, since the league calendar year has started, it's a whole different story from last year. Last year, and I said this even after the draft, the Dolphins felt like a team that was set up as pass to set up the run. Even with the addition of Tyreek Hill, it's going to be the other way around now. They're a team that is going to run to set up the pass because that is in the Shanahan DNA. That's how this offense is engineered to work. The wide zone, the benefit of the wide zone is you have athletic offensive linemen, you run horizontally pressing the line of scrimmage, and you are designed to force defenders to commit to gaps. And when they do, you use your athleticism to out-leverage them and manipulate them at the point of attack. And then it's up to your back to be a dynamic ball carrier and have the ability to dynamically cut when they identify a hole has been opened, whether that is everybody reaches and the edge is soft and I hit the outside and then I turn up the field and I'm one-on-one with a corner or potentially a safety. Or if everybody bails out and those linebackers flow over the top because they're flying out because they're afraid of giving up the edge, that back has to be able to stick his foot in the ground and explode up the field. It's a lot of high-stress rushing concepts, and it will test your gap integrity. And the Dolphins have done a nice job to this point in adding some athletes on the front to be able to do that. And I also think it should not be slept on how much coaching improvements in the run game and up front can kind of help to provide a catalyst for improvement as well. Never mind the fact that Terron Armstead and his leadership and his experience amongst all these young offensive linemen, which we talked about this morning. So all of that with these two guys on the outside, or heaven forbid, if you go two tight ends and you put them on the run strength and you put Waddle and Tyreek Hill on the backside in a stack where you're going to guarantee one of those guys is going to get a free release off the line, and one of those guys could carry across the middle of the field and the other guy can hit a double move or he can run vertically down the field with a free release, you're going to manufacture a lot of light boxes. And those light boxes give you the opportunity in the run game to establish the run. So I hope that helps. Let me catch my breath here. Shane, the producer of our show on Draft Dudes over at thedraftnetwork.com, is a Jets fan. And when the news first was reported that Tyreek Hill might be getting traded and that the Jets and Dolphins were finalists, Chris shot me a tweet and said, you and I are going to be fighting all week. And thankfully, this was not a Terron Armstead 1 week long standoff. This was about an hour and a half process from start to finish. And you knew when Schefter and Rappaport started coming off with as many tweets as they did that this was going to happen pretty quickly. And boy, oh boy, did it materialize. So we don't know a lot about the salary cap implications right now. I have seen a number of questions about the salary cap and where the Dolphins stand at this point in time. We don't really know. We don't know. As of this morning, at least, we didn't know the details of the Terron Armstead deal and how they chose to structure that, let alone the Tyreek Hill deal, never mind the fact that they have a boatload of guaranteed money involved. And for those of you who might be concerned about the salary cap, this is what Chris Grier's strategy to this point in time allows the Dolphins to do. They entered into this offseason number one in the NFL in spending power. But more importantly, they structured a lot of their contracts in a manner that allows them to have optimal flexibility moving forward. So they're obviously going to have less of that now with two major contracts, over $110 million in guaranteed money handed out over the past 24 hours to two players in Terron Armstead and Tyreek Hill. But this is what this strategy from a cap perspective for the last 3 years has built to. This is the fruits of your labor. This is what Chris Grier structuring contracts, and Brandon Shore, I want to give him his due credit here as well, structuring the contracts in the way that they have to not just automatically defer into, we're going to backload the contracts, we're going to take low cap hits in year one. They didn't do that. In 2019 with Xavier Howard, when they gave him his contract extension, they put a big-ass roster bonus in year one and said, we're going to take the lumps now. And you're going to get your cash now. And they've since paid for it because Howard and his representation did not fight for better returns year over year. And, of course, they still need to resolve that question because they made a promise that they were going to reassess that contract situation. But this massive influx in guaranteed dollars is only possible because of the way the Dolphins have handled the cap for the last 3 years, which has been very meticulous and calculated and done to assure when you find the right opportunities to, as you perceive it, add elite talent to your roster and sign contract extensions, you will have the flexibility to do so. So I am not worried in the least bit about the Dolphins' salary cap flexibility for adding two large contracts to the books. Because outside of that, their large contracts are Byron Jones, which they can get out of after this year if they wanted to. And they'll have 2 first-round picks. And if their quarterback hits this year, then you'll have 2 first-round picks to go find a corner in next year's draft. And Xavier Howard. Emmanuel Ogbah, not a bank-breaking deal. Not by any means. I mean, it was around $50 million per season. We're expecting the cap in 2 years to be around $250 million. Right now, it's at 209. Last year, it was 278.5. Don't be worried about the cap. Now, they'll have less flexibility, but now is when you'll probably see moving forward the team start to embrace a little bit more of the ideology of doing what other teams that have been contenders have done, which is we're going to restructure your contract, we're going to push and defer, and that's going to manufacture a little bit more cap space for in the now. But again, that goes back to where this team is in their life cycle versus where they were when they decided in 2019 they were going to rebuild. They feel like they're ready. And last year they told us the players that are here are going to determine how successful we are. They've clearly decided amongst a head coaching change, we're not good enough. So we need to continue to get better. But now their actions are showing you they think they're on the cusp. And their actions are showing you between Terron Armstead and Connor Williams and Chase Edmonds and Raheem Mostert and Tyreek Hill and retaining Mike Gesicki and Cedric Wilson Jr. that they are all in, pushing their chips in the table, and they should be. Because for Chris Grier, if it doesn't happen this year, it ain't going to happen for you. So I'm glad that they identify this opportunity and they are acting as such as a team that is a young contender that is to evolve so that they can take it seriously in the pantheon of the NFL. That's going to do it for us here. I know this emergency podcast has been well received by many of you. I'm overwhelmed by the approximately 300 of you who are live streaming this with me here and now on the YouTube channel. If you guys enjoyed it, just know we have a lot of video content that comes out 3 to 4 episodes a week. Make sure you like the video, hit subscribe on the channel. And if you enjoy Locked On Dolphins, please plan accordingly. You hit subscribe, get that podcast, the audio right in your feed. As soon as we're done here, I'm going to convert this video into an audio format and send it out to all of our loyal subscribers as well. Fins up! What a time. We are back, as we said at the very top, to being off-season champions of the NFL. Here's hoping the in-season results are a little different. And as we said just now, the Dolphins' path to getting here gives us hope that it should be different. One thing we know, they're going to be fast as hell, and it's going to be fun to watch. Kyle Krabs, Locked On Dolphins, fins up. Make it a good one. Talk with you guys again tomorrow.